Hello, and welcome back to Ant's Gaming Suite. This is your host Anthony, back with a new video. Today we are going to be discussing the skill tree of the Void Gauntlet, the skills both in passive and active, and also there's, like every other weapon, there is two skill tree in terms of annihilations, and I believe it's decay, but we'll get into that shortly. But before we jump straight into the video, make sure you guys hit that like, hit the subscribe button, also leave a comment section down below. Are you guys excited for the Void Gauntlet, or are you waiting for the next weapon to be released? I believe there's already going to be another 4 more weapons in terms of data mining, thanks to a Reddit user. But anyway, let's jump straight into it. So these are some of the images based on the Void Gauntlet of what the design is going to be looking like. It's pretty much a nice gauntlet with I guess holding a donut ring or a bagel, whichever you want. And or it could be, hopefully it's going to be a lore behind it as to why perhaps maybe the ice gauntlet got corrupted, now it's void damage. Who knows what the lore is behind it. Anyway, I hope you guys really like it. Let me know in the comment section down below, are you guys going to be using a Void Gauntlet? I definitely know I will be using or trying to build a PvP Void Gauntlet and Fire Staff. I'll let you know how that go. We're going to quickly jump into the basic attack types. So light attack, like every other weapon, will deal 100% void damage. Heavy attack will do 125% damage, that's 25% extra. And if you do harvest essence or you hold the block, you convert your health into mana over time. Rate scales of your weapon damage like everything else. So we're going to move into the first skill tree under annihilation, the first active skill, and followed by its passive. So the first active is called Void Blade. Summons a blade of void energy that converts your basic attacks to melee. Tapping attack or light attack produces a quick slash that deals X% weapon damage, or if you hold it to perform a heavy attack, will cause a thrust attack that deals percentage of weapon damage. Both attacks inflict disintegrate on successful hits, dealing X% weapon damage per second and reducing the damage absorption by X% for X seconds for X amount of duration. So these are the other 3 passive that you can get for the Void Blade. The first one's called Blistering Blade, gains a fortified and increase your damage absorption by X% for X seconds. And then you have Penetrating Blade, X% critical damage on your Void Blade. I think this one's going to be pretty darn awesome. Draining Blade, successful attack self-heals for X% weapon damage per disintegrate, a stack on the target. So the more disintegrate you have, the more you are going to be able to self-heal based on the stack that you have and the weapon percentage damage as well. So I think this is going to be pretty darn OP. It's kind of like a life staff in itself here. Or I don't know, kind of like a hatchet, but you heal yourself. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I think that's pretty darn awesome. We're gonna quickly jump into the next active skill. So the next active skill under the annihilation skill tree is called Punishing Chamber. Summons a circle of void energy at your feet that deals X% weapon damage per second to enemies and grants empower to friendliness, or increases the damage by X% by the X meters of radius for 8 seconds. So this is similar to that of the Helios. You can either use it to empower your teammates, or if you're being attacked by an enemy melee, you can use it as similar to the Ice Storm and protect yourself doing damage over time. In terms of the passive skills for Punishing Chamber, there is 2 called Efficient Chamber. Void Gauntlet mana costs are reduced by X% while inside the chamber, and also the other one is called Invigorating Chamber, gives you extra plus X stamina per second for self and friendliness while inside the chamber. I think this is going to be really good for tank characters in particular, if they're lacking that particular stamina need. And then lastly, the third skill for annihilation skill is called Petrifying Scream. Unleashes a void infused scream, dealing X% of weapon damage and inflicting root to your enemies 4 meters in front of you, disabling their movement for X amount of seconds. Similar to the ice maelstrom, ice storm, whichever it is, based on the ice gauntlet, where you will root the enemy character should they be in front of it or on it, before you can deal DPS damage. Very similar to that skill here. In terms of the passive skill, there's only 2 that we can have a look at the moment, which is called Extended Scream. Increases your root duration, increases by X second on target below X amount of HP. And Blistering Scream, gain fortified for each enemy hit, increasing damage absorption by X second for X% for X second per hit. So I'm assuming it's going to be like probably 30% HP anyway. So that's pretty much the annihilation skill. We'll just quickly drop into the Void Aura ultimate, and then we'll jump into the next decay skill tree. Last but not least, we have annihilation skill for the ultimate Void Aura. On successful ability hit, gain a stack of void essence At 6 stacks, consumes all stacks and gains an X amount of aura on self that heals friendliness for X amount of weapon damage and deals X% weapon damage per second to enemies within. So that also caused by X amount of duration by X amount of cooldown, so we don't know what they exactly are, but I think that is pretty darn awesome. It's like a sacred healing ground, but when you have a 6 stack, it pretty much pops off when in need, so that is pretty darn amazing. I reckon this Void Gauntlet might be a little bit broken when it first comes out, who knows, but I can't wait into it. Anyway, let's jump into the other skill tree called Decay. Okay, so on the Decay skill tree, this is the first active skill called Decaying Orb. Fires an unblockable orb that passes through enemies and inflicts disintegrate, dealing X% of weapon damage per second and reducing damage absorption by X second. At max range, transform into a healing orb and returns healing friendliness for X weapon damage per second for X seconds. So this is pretty darn awesome actually. It acts in both the way of being an offensive kind of skill, plus, or you can be a supportive kind of skill. It just really depends on how this actually works in terms of disintegrate here, but I can't wait for it. In terms of the passive Decaying Orb, you have Draining Orb, X% of mana per hit. Any X% mana per hit. Slowing Orb slows enemies already affected by any debuff, reducing their movement speed by X% for X second. Detonating Orb presses the ability input again to detonate the orb with an X meter explosion radius. Depending on the orb's phase, the explosion will either damage enemies for X amount of weapon damage, or apply disintegrate or heal enemy friendness for X% of weapon damage. So that is pretty much the first skill set in terms of the Decaying Orb. We'll quickly move on to the next one. So the second passive skill is called Draining Tether. Fires a projectile that tethers you to an enemy, weakening it and empowering you by X% per second. The tether ends if the target moves beyond 10 meters or X amount of duration. The passive skills you have is Refreshing Tether. Successful hits against the tethered target reduce other Void Gauntlet cooldown by X%. Invigorating Tether, X amount of mana regeneration while other tether is active. Repeating Tether, regain X% weapon damage as health if the tethered target die. Well, my interesting here thing is if you switch into your fire staff, does that turn off your tether skill? Similar to that of the Ice Storm, where if you change it to the fire staff, it will stop the little maelstrom thing going on. But anyway, on to the next skill. And the last active skill for Decay is Essence Rupture. Fire projectile inflicts Essence Rupture for X amount of seconds, telling anyone that hits a target for X amount of damage done. So that is pretty much the last and final active skill for the Decay skill. In terms of its passive, there is 2. Revitalizing Rupture. Friendliness within a meter of the affected areas are healed for X amount of your weapon. And Invigorating Ruptures, players active additional receive extra stamina. And for the ultimate, for the Decay skill here, we have passive Void Conversion. Gains a stack of Void Essence per successful ability hit at X or more stacks. Your next successful heavy attack will instantly reset all your Void Gauntlet skills. Anyway, so that is pretty much the majority of the Void Gauntlet skill. This may be subjected to change, so keep that in mind. Until everything is confirmed and released, we'll do a further video in terms of build for PvE and PvP. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you guys hit that like and hit the subscribe for new world content in the future.